Biden declared fit for duty after health checkup. Zelensky suggests joint arms production in Albania summit. Hello and good afternoon. And Salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for watching us. I'm Otto Othman and you're watching World Today. United States President Joe Biden arrived at Walter Reed Medical Center in Maryland to undergo physical examination on Wednesday. Now, this year's physical check comes as Biden, a Democrat, and former Republican President Donald Trump prepare to face off in a likely rematch in the 5th November presidential election. Doctors declared Biden healthy and fit for duty in a memo sent on Wednesday that showed the 81-year-old had a root canal last year and is being treated for sleep apnea but is in good health. Biden, aged 81, continues to have a stiff gait, but it has not worsened since last year. Dr. Kevin O'Connor wrote the president has peripheral neuropathy in both feet, gastroesophageal reflux, allergies, and spinal arthritis that are treated with medication. He added that the president feels well and this year's physical identified no new concerns and went on to clarify that Biden continues to be fit for duty and fully executes all of his responsibilities without any exemptions or accommodations. The president's health has received increased scrutiny this year as he runs for re-election as the oldest president in U.S. history. United States Supreme Court justices struggled over the technical aspects of bump stocks on Wednesday as they considered the legality of a federal ban imposed under former President Donald Trump on these devices. Now, this case targets another firearms restriction after a major gun rights expansion in 2022. The justices heard arguments in an appeal by President Joe Biden's administration of a lower court's ruling in favor of Michael Cargill, a gun shop owner and gun rights advocate for Austin, Texas, who challenged the ban implemented place after a 2017 mass shooting that killed 58 people in Las Vegas. Questions posed by the justices did not clearly signal how they will resolve the case in a ruling due by the end of June. The Supreme Court, with a 6-3 conservative majority, has taken a broad view of gun rights in a country deeply divided over how to address firearms violence, most recently in its landmark 2022 ruling striking down New York State's limits on carrying concealed handguns outside the home. The current case centers on whether the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, ATF, a U.S. Justice Department agency, properly interpreted a law banning machine guns as extending to bump stocks. United States Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell said on Wednesday he would step down from his leadership role, leaving a power vacuum atop the party he has piloted for nearly 17 years, more than any other party leader in the chamber's history. The 82-year-old Kentucky lawmaker's departure will cap the career of a lawmaker reviled by Democrats that has acted aggressively to end the national right to abortion and expand gun rights. McConnell's hardball approach to governing was on display in early 2016 when he orchestrated Republican stonewalling of then-President Barack Obama's nomination of Merrick Garland to a vacant seat to the U.S. Supreme Court. Without missing a beat, McConnell struck again in 2020 with this time just weeks before another presidential election. Taking the opposite approach, he rammed through then-President Trump's nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, cementing a 6-3 conservative majority. McConnell dubbed himself the Grim Reaper for his eagerness to bury liberal initiatives in the legislative graveyard. It took McConnell more than 3 decades from when he was first elected to the Senate to rise to majority leader. In 2023, he became the longest-serving Senate party leader in U.S. history, having led the Republicans in the chamber since 2006. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky tried to drum up Balkan support for his vision of peace in Ukraine and promoted the idea of joint arms production at two-day summit of southeastern European countries on Wednesday. The summit in Albania capital Tirana comes as Kyiv is trying to improve its defensive capabilities to beat back Russian forces at a time of faltering U.S. support more than 2 years into Russia's full-scale invasion. During the summit, Zelensky met with Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić, Moldovan President Maja Sandu, and Chairperson of the Council of Ministers of Bosnia and Herzegovina, Borjana Kristo. Zelensky thanked Vučić for his support and pledged to work together further. Vučić offered further humanitarian help and said he believed only constructive dialogue and diplomatic solutions can bring peace. Zelensky's diplomatic peace initiative envisions a Russian military withdrawal from all of Ukrainian territory, has not involved Russia in talks so far, and been dismissed by Moscow as a non-starter. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire argued on Wednesday that there is not enough basis in international law to seize the Russian assets, emphasizing that such a move would require the endorsement of G20 members and other countries. Western powers have butted heads over how to handle frozen Russian assets as G20 finance ministers kicked off a discussion of challenges for the global economy, trying to set aside deep geopolitical divisions. Le Maire said there should not be any kind of division introduced among the G20 countries, adding that at the moment, countries should unite in support of Ukraine. Their disagreement underscored tricky geopolitical terrain for the G20 group of major world economies, whose foreign ministers last week in Rio de Janeiro vented deep divisions over the war in Ukraine and Israel's bombardment of Gaza. Brazil is trying with its presidency of the G20 to shift discussions away from geopolitical tensions between major powers and toward a consensus on a sustainable development, while trying to give developing nations of the global south a wider platform. South Korea and the United States will begin their annual spring military drills next week, with a focus on heading off North Korea's potential use of nuclear weapons. The Freedom Shield exercises, set for 4th until 14th March, came as North Korea continues to test various missiles and other weapon systems and develop its nuclear capability, and will be the first since Pyongyang scrapped the 2018 Inter-Korean Military Pact in November. U.S. and South Korean military officials said at a briefing that the drills will be tough and realistic, and based on scenarios that reflect lessons learned from recent wars and conflicts, and focus on countering North Korea's nuclear operations. Some of the key aspects of the military drills will be focusing on conducting multi-domain operations, leveraging land, sea, air, cyber, and space assets, and countering nuclear operations. North Korea has accused the allies of stoking tensions with military drills, calling it rehearsals for a nuclear war. Seoul and Washington say the exercises are defensive in nature and meant to respond to the North's threats. The United Nations yesterday started pulling peacekeepers out of Democratic Republic of Congo, moving to end a 25-year presence as conflict surges in the east of the long-troubled African state. Congo demanded the withdrawal of the remaining 13,500 troops and 2,000 police in regions bordering Rwanda and Burundi, despite international concerns over rampant violence. At an official ceremony at the Kamanyola base in South Kivu province, the first to be handed over, the flags of the United Nations and the Pakistan peacekeepers at the base were replaced by those of the Congo. National police have taken charge, and the UN representative in the country, Bintao Keita, said this would be the model for the withdrawal from all UN bases. The UN Stabilization Mission in Congo, or MONUSCO, was set up in 1999 in a bid to halt the Second Congo War, which pitted local forces backed by Angola, Namibia, and Zimbabwe against rival forces supported by Uganda and Rwanda. At its peak, there were 20,000 UN troops in the giant country. According to UN figures, more than 270 MONUSCO peacekeepers have been killed. Kinshasa has long accused the UN force of failing to protect civilians from the armed groups that have plagued the east of the country for 3 decades. The UN Security Council voted in December to accede to Kinshasa's demand and start a gradual shutdown of MONUSCO. Foreign Minister Christophe Lutundula has said he wants the withdrawal completed by the end of this year, though the UN Security Council has not fixed a date. Coming up next, South Korean military and community doctors to be assigned in regular hospitals. South Korea's military and community doctors will be assigned to hospitals beginning March. South Korean Prime Minister Han Duck-soo said on Wednesday that the decision was made under an emergency healthcare program being activated to respond to a mass walkout by trainee doctors. At the opening of the government meeting, Han pleaded with the young doctors to return to work by today, a deadline set by the government, and promised to listen to their concerns about working conditions. Han said military doctors and community doctors who are serving at local clinics in lieu of mandatory military service will be assigned to hospitals where essential services have been disrupted starting in March. Interior and Safety Minister Lee Sang-min visited a public medical center on Wednesday to encourage medical workers and inspect emergency medical services. The government has warned it could suspend the licenses of doctors who do not comply with the back-to-work order and also could pursue prosecution. Hong Kong on Wednesday announced major measures to bolster its flagging real estate market by scrapping all tightening measures for residential properties aimed at helping the city's economy, which is expected to grow at a tepid 2.5 to 3.5% this year. The financial hub will cancel all additional stamp duties on transactions, waive stamp duties payable on the transfer of real estate investment trust units, and scrap all demand-side management measures for residential properties. These include cutting all additional stamp duties for foreign buyers and those for the purchase of second properties, as well as on those selling flats within 2 years of buying, that had been imposed in the decade prior to the current slump to try to cool one of the world's priciest property markets. Noting challenges including high interest rates, a complex geopolitical environment, as well as ballooning recent budget deficits, a mix of measures was announced spanning property, tourism, and financial services to lure back capital, businesses, and visitors to the city, as well as to restore fiscal balance. The city will also stage more than 80 mega events in the first half of the year to boost tourism, including a monthly fireworks and drone show at its famed Victoria Harbour. Cuba's government said it plans to reschedule an unpopular 5-fold increase in retail fuel prices for March 1st, a month later than initially planned after officials said its systems had suffered a cyber attack. Economy Vice Minister Mildred Granadillo said in a state-run media report on Wednesday that the problems caused by the late January cyber attack have been resolved, allowing the government to move forward with retail price increases at the pump. Cuba in late December announced a series of measures, including hikes in fuel and public transport prices, in a bid to narrow a ballooning fiscal deficit. Officials said they had decided to limit the fuel price rises on March 1st to the retail sector, leaving the discounted wholesale prices that apply to public services such as transportation unchanged to soften the blow on consumers. The communist-run government said it would also move forward on March 1st with a previously announced hike in the price of electricity for top-tier users, but decided to hold off on increasing the price of liquefied gas used widely on the island for cooking. The price increases come as Cuba undergoes its worst economic crisis in decades, prompting a record-breaking migration off the island and growing angst amongst Cubans who suffer severe shortages of food, fuel, and medicine. British biotechnology company Oxitec is betting on a solution to Brazil's surging dengue cases, involving the release of genetically modified mosquitoes in an effort to reduce the viral infection's spread. The firm has developed a version of the male Aedes aegypti mosquito, which carries a gene that kills female offspring before they reach maturity, surpassing their population. Only female mosquitoes bite and transmit diseases. As the modified mosquitoes are released in a given region, they proliferate and the total population of the insect decreases. Brazil has been dealing with a massive outbreak of dengue fever in the early months of 2024, fueled by its hot, rainy season. As of 27th February, more than 973,000 likely dengue cases had been notified in the country this year. According to the Health Ministry, 195 people died because of the disease, while 672 further deaths are being investigated. The mosquito population in a neighborhood where the company has rolled out the treatment is up to 90% lower than in a neighborhood where it hasn't been deployed. The city of Suzano in the Brazilian state of Sao Paulo is using the solution after declaring a state of emergency earlier this month. Ash spewing from the Popocatépetl volcano outside Mexico City led some airlines to cancel around 24 flights in and out of the Latin American capital. The Mexico City International Airport said on social media that national and international operators have canceled 22 flights due to airplane safety checks having found ashes. The airport's arrivals and departures log showed cancellations and delays, though the causes were not listed. Authorities have warned ash is likely to fall in the states of Morales, Puebla, and Mexico, as well as in Mexico City, which lies some 90 kilometers from the volcano. Since Popocatépetl became active in December 1994, after 6 decades of quiet ascents have been prohibited, a hostel for mountaineers was closed and access near the crater has been restricted. It has seen increased activity ever since, and occasionally it has been necessary to evacuate residents of nearby rural communities. Nerves were rattled when spewed ashes, gases, and molten rock in May of last year. Some 25 million people live within a 60-mile radius of the volcano, making it among the most dangerous in the world, though it has not had a massive eruption in more than a millennium. The Lunar Lander that touched down on the moon last week is still working via solar power after it was announced on Monday that its batteries were on the verge of running dry. The update heralds the final stages in a mission that has marked the first ever moon landing by a private company, but also witnessed numerous problems, including when the lander tipped over sideways on reaching the surface, where it continues to lie on its side. Texas-based Intuitive Machines had earlier estimated there were about 10 to 20 hours of battery life left. It has said it intended to collect data from the spacecraft, named Odysseus, until the lander's solar panels are no longer exposed to light. Intuitive Machines said Odysseus continues to generate solar power on the moon, allowing flight controllers to continue gathering data from the South Pole region of the furtherance of the IM-1 mission objectives. NASA is planning to return astronauts to the moon later this decade and paid Intuitive Machines around $120 million for the mission as part of an initiative to delegate cargo missions to the private sector and stimulate a lunar economy. The uncrewed Odysseus carries a suite of NASA instruments designed to improve scientific understanding of the lunar South Pole, where the space agency plans to send astronauts under its Artemis program later this decade. In addition to being the first ever successful private lunar landing, Artemis also marks the first return by the United States to the moon in 5 decades. Pope Francis, who has been suffering from influenza, made a brief trip to a Roman hospital for medical checkups on Wednesday, but was able to return to the Vatican. His office said in a statement that the Pope, aged 87, had checks at the Tiber Hospital after his weekly general audience without providing further details. Vatican analyst Philip Pulela said the choice of hospital meant it was unlikely to be a serious health scare. Two medical sources informed that he had a CT scan. Francis underwent the same procedure at the same hospital in November, following another bout of influenza. Televised images on Wednesday showed a Vatican-registered white Fiat, which is a model Francis uses regularly, leaving the medical facility in the center of the Rome at around midday. Francis, who has had a number of health issues recently, had cancelled appointments on Saturday and Monday due to what the Vatican called a mild flu. On Sunday, he addressed crowds in St. Peter's Square as normal to deliver his message. A ship powered by renewable energy, including hydrogen, produced on board, is docked at the southeastern U.S. state of Florida this week as it prepares to finish the last leg of a voyage around the world. The 100-foot catamaran, dubbed the Energy Observer, has logged 63,040 nautical miles without using fossil fuels since it first started sailing in 2017 with this particular trip around the world, which started in 2020. The mission has tested renewable energy, including by using solar panels and advanced sails called Ocean Wings, a power source in multiple climates off the coasts of Africa, Asia, and Antarctica. The automated 12-meter wings boost the ship's speed and reduce energy consumption. The project hopes to influence the shipping and maritime sectors, especially as its ocean wings have already been used in commercial shipping. They were used on a freighter called the Canopy, which was designed to transport parts of the Ariane 6 rocket from Europe to a launch center in French Guiana on the northeast tip of South America. In the course of the Energy Observer's current voyage, 40% of the vessel's energy has come from wind, 40% from solar, and 20% from hydrogen. The ship is set to make stops in Washington, New York, and Boston before heading back to France. Still to come in sports, Cristiano Ronaldo suspended after post-match obscene gesture. Now, a bag containing a computer and 2 memory sticks with data about the Paris 2024 Olympics has been lost by a City Hall engineer and may be stolen. In a statement, the Paris prosecutor's office said an investigation into the theft has been handed to transport police following the incident at the city's Gare du Nord railway station late on 26 February. The prosecutor office said the bag contained a professional USB memory stick that contained some security plan related to traffic in Paris during the Olympic Games. It said that there is no sensitive security plan in the missing drive. Meanwhile, Paris 2024 organizers declined to comment further on the matter. The Paris Olympics will be held from 26 July to 11th August. Some 30,000 members of the police force are expected to be mobilized every day during the Olympics, with about 300,000 spectators expected to attend the opening ceremony along the River Seine. A Paris 2024 official this week assured athletes that the apartment units in the Olympic Village are adapted to summer temperatures, amid international delegations expressing worries over heat waves during the Games. Located in the Paris suburbs, the site is undergoing finishing touches. It will be visited and inaugurated by President Emmanuel Macron today, 5 months ahead of the start of the Games. The village, which will welcome more than 20,000 athletes throughout the Olympics and Paralympics, will not feature air conditioning in its apartments in an effort to slash its carbon emissions by more than half compared to previous editions of the Games. Several delegations, including the Greeks and the Australians, have announced that they plan to provide athletes with their own air conditioning and fans, as previous summers saw heat waves with temperatures soaring up to 42 degrees Celsius in the capital. But Jan Krasinski, Paris 2024 Chief Operating Officer for the delivery of venues and infrastructure, said the buildings are efficiently insulated and can keep cool temperatures despite heat waves. He added that the site will use naturally cool underground water to help manage the heat without air conditioning. He added that the 2,800 apartment units will be resold and become a residential complex from 2025. Cristiano Ronaldo has been suspended for one match after appearing to make an obscene gesture following Al Nassr's 3-2 win over Al-Shabaab. This was announced by the Disciplinary and Ethics Committee of the Saudi Football Federation SAFF yesterday. After the final whistle on Sunday, social media videos captured Ronaldo cupping his ear before repeatedly pumping his hand forward in front of his pelvic area, with the action appearing to be directed at rival supporters. In the background, chants of Messi could be heard, referring Ronaldo's long-term football rival from Argentina. The committee said the Portuguese star would have to pay a fine of 10,000 Saudi riyals to the Saudi Football Federation and 20,000 riyals to Al-Shabaab to cover the costs of the complaint filing fees. The committee said the decision is not subject to appeal. Now, the ATP Tour and Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, or PIF, has signed a multi-year strategic partnership in a move highlighting the growing influence of the Gulf nation on global sport. Now, the PIF will now become the official naming partner of the men's rankings, as well as partner ATP tournaments in Indian Wells, Miami, Madrid, Beijing, the season-ending ATP Finals in Turin, and the next-gen ATP Final stage in Jeddah. Saudi Arabia has invested heavily in various sports like soccer, Formula One, boxing, and golf in the last few years, while critics accuse the oil-rich kingdom of using PIF to sports wash its human rights record. The country denies accusations of human rights abuses and say it protects its national security through its laws. The ATP said PIF had committed to developing and unlocking opportunities for young players and would also contribute to its One Vision strategic plan that focused on unity, enhancing fan experiences, and leveraging growth opportunities. In August, the ATP announced that its next-gen finals for men's under-21 players would take place in Jeddah until 2027, with the prize money increased to a record $2 million. Saudi Arabia will also host a new elite tennis exhibition tournament featuring Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal, and other 3 Grand Slam champions in October. Nadal was also named an ambassador for the Saudi Tennis Federation last month. Well, that wraps up this edition of World Today. In our top story, Joe Biden declared fit for duty after health checkup. Till next time, I'm Otto Othman. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.